The 2019 US Championship will soon be taking place in the prestigious St. Louis Chess Club. It will feature 12 of America's strongest players, such as Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So, Hikaru Nakamura, Samuel Shankland, the defending champion, Linear Dominguez, who recently switched federations, just to name a few. So definitely a very stacked field. To get us warmed up for the main event, I've decided to show you a game from the reigning champion in last year's edition. So with the white pieces, we have Soviet Izoria, the Georgian-born US Grandmaster, and with black, the 2018 US champion Sam Shankland. This game was from round 3 of the event, and it's the game where Sam scored his first win and eventually went on a legendary run to win the title. So let's take a look at this game. So we have a Queen's Gambit decline, and Soviet goes for the exchange variation. c5 from Shankland, the semi-tarrasch. So e4 is the main move, but Soviet opts for the sideline of e3. We have knight takes c3, b takes, queen to c7, and bishop b2 defending the pawn. And bishop b2 is a rare line. Bishop d2 is more frequently played, but bishop b2. And the bishop, although useless at the moment, could become a good piece if white manages to advance the c and d pawns. So development continued as usual for both sides. White castled, and previously black castled as well in this position. But Shankland played b6, and this is a new move. So obviously preparing to develop the bishop to the most natural square. And now with the bishop still on c8, Izoria takes the opportunity to play d5. This is most likely home preparation from Izoria. So white takes advantage of the fact that black's king is still stuck in the center, and white is also one step closer to unleashing the bishop on b2. And if the pawn is taken, then white can play rook to e1, pinning the bishop, and making it difficult for black to castle kingside. So one possibility is to play knight c5 to defend the pawn on e6 with the bishop. But Shankland opted to castle, allowing d takes e6, creating an isolated weakness, and queen c2. I think Izoria was pleased with how the opening went. So as we can see, there is a slight lead in development for white, as black hasn't yet developed his light square bishop. White also has these two bishops pointing towards the king side, looking rather menacing. There's also the e6 pawn to attack, so pretty decent position for white. However, black also has pluses of his own. For one, he has the open f-file, so rook takes f3 might be a possibility in the future. The light square bishop could also be pretty strong on b7, and this bishop could come to d6 to put pressure here. Could also come to f6 to challenge the dark square bishop, so still plenty to play for in this position. So Shankland played h6, meeting the threat of bishop takes h7. And now perhaps the most logical continuation for white is to bring the rook over and attack the isolated pawn. But instead, Izoria goes for a different approach. He plays bishop h7 check, first displacing the king, and then bishop e4. So Izoria obviously worried about black bringing the bishop to b7. Now with bishop b7, white's plan is to take and bring the rook over to e1 to pressure e6. And if knight c5 defending, then the e5 square is no longer defended by black, so the knight simply jumps in and now threatens knight g6. So Shankland obviously didn't want to allow this, so rook to b8. And now we have c4 opening up the dark square bishop. Bishop f6 from Shankland, challenging the bishop on b2. So once again, white could have considered playing the rook over to e1. This would have made sense to put pressure on e6. And if black tries to win a pawn, with bishop takes b2 and queen takes c4, then white can develop his last piece with tempo on the queen. And this looks like a pretty promising position for white. You can see that all of his pieces are already developed, as opposed to black, who is undeveloped. Especially this bishop on c8, you can see his pieces are very uncoordinated. The bishop on c8 disconnects the rooks. So here white has possibilities like rook c7, which could cause black some difficulties to develop the bishop on b7. Also some pressure on g7. There are also possibilities like knight to h4, knight to g6. So let's look at a possible line. So I'm not going to play the best defense for black, but just to show you how dangerous this can be. So that's going to be a piece for white. So in the game, Izoria decided to play bishop to a3 instead of bringing the rook to e1, which is a bit peculiar because white just gives up control of the long diagonal. So knight c5 from Shankland, blocking the attack on the rook, while also attacking the bishop on e4. We now have rook a to d1, getting out of the bishop's attack. Bishop d7 from Shankland, and now bishop takes c5. So perhaps this was white's intention behind bishop a3, because now the pawn capture b takes c5 is forced, because if queen takes c5, then rook takes d7. And this is rather ugly for black, at the same time useful since he now has b4 square to latch onto with the rook. So you can see black has these 3 isolated pawns. White also has isolated pawns, but at least these pawns on the king's side are, you can see they're intact. So rook to b4 is now a possibility for black, which was what happened in the game after rook b1, rook to b4. So black is getting ready to just double on the b file. Izoria goes queen to e2, now trying to organize the queen-bishop battery. We have rook f to b8 and bishop c2, now intending to bring the queen in front of the bishop. So Shankland now decides to trade off some pieces. Bishop takes b1. Instead of rook takes b1, bishop takes b1, maybe intending to put a rook on one of these open files. Shankland played king g8, aware of the danger of the queen-bishop battery. So Izoria plays h4, going all out on the king side. We have king to f8, and now queen to e3. So preparing to support this g4, g5 advance, looking very dangerous. But Shankland does a good job of playing active defense. Now rook to b2, activating the rook, g4, and queen to d6. So activating the queen, now controlling the d file, and also preparing bishop d4 if white goes g5, which he played in the game. Bishop d4, and now knight captures is forced, because if you move the queen, then queen g3 check, taking advantage of the pin. And this leads to a very strong attack. So knight takes d4, we have queen takes d4. The best try now for white is to go queen f3 check, and bishop g6 with an unclear game. Threats like queen f7, rook to d1. So black also has some weaknesses to attack. on the queen side. So this is not clear. But instead, Izoria played bishop to e4. So this was a blunder from Izoria. So he was hoping for queen takes c4, where now queen f4 check is possible and also very effective. Because now rook d1, threatening stuff like queen d6, followed by taking the bishop. So Izoria probably missed something, as black can play rook to a2, rook takes a2, which was what Shankland played. So if he played queen takes e3, bishop g6 might give white sufficient counterplay with the rook coming to f7. Here if g6 instead of bishop to g6, then black can go bishop e8, controlling f7. So this line with queen takes e3 might give white some chances, but rook takes a2. So black is now up a pawn, and you can see he has this very dangerous a pawn. So now queen f3 check, king to e7, and rook to d1. So this looks dangerous, but Sam has seen that he has to move rook to a1, now pinning the rook. So if he would have played rook d2, there might be some counterplay with rook b1 and rook b7. So rook to a1, threatening to take the rook, so bishop b1, blocking the attack. So now the normal reaction would be to capture the pawn on c4. But white goes queen g3 and the position remains unclear. But after bishop b1, Shankland plays a move which gives him a decisive edge. Bishop to c6, and I think this was overlooked by Izoria. So white actually resigned in this position. So what happens if queen takes c6? Simply queen takes d1, followed by rook takes b1, and black is just up a whole rook. So what happens if you play rook takes? Well, bishop takes f3 and black wins, as white cannot go rook d1 to protect the bishop, as that square is covered by the black bishop on f3. And if queen e2, trying to keep defense of the rook on d1, black goes queen to f4 and he will pick up a second pawn. If g6, then bishop to f3, skewering the queen and the rook. If white tries queen b2 to attack the rook, also attacking h6, queen h6 is a very nice move, defending g7 while also threatening an unstoppable mate on h1. So here, if queen d3, then simply takes, and black can now pull the king into the center. And this should be a winning position for black, up 2 pawns with a very exposed king. So I hope you enjoyed this game between Izoria and Shankland. Hopefully this game will get you guys excited about the upcoming US Championship. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.